So thanks a million, Omid. Thanks everyone for having me. So I'm going to show you some of the new features in RPA 11.2. First off, let's start with documentation generation, which I feel is not just extremely cool, but it's also very usable. As some of you know, I work with some of the biggest RPA users out there, and one of the things that they need to do is they need to do their due diligence as well. And part of that due diligence is generating and maintaining and updating RPA robots documentation. So what you can now do, once you're in the management console, you can go to your robots that you want to analyze or want to have documentation generated for. Just right click there and click generate documentation. So this is a very straightforward robot, just one step, and it already mentions I'm now running the robot called DA. So if I then also grab the robot called DA and generate documentation for that as well, you might see, okay, well, this is extremely extensive, where you can actually go in, and these are of course highlighted, so if you actually click them, you'll actually be guided through them as well. And then you can of course also print them or save them as PDF and store them here. And yeah, then of course you can store them whatever you want. So you might need to sign them as well. And yeah, perfect. So the next great big feature within RPA 11.2 is the updates that have been done to analytics. So first of all, the application usage overview. So this is going to tell you exactly what labels, for instance, are used, whether they are tags or whether they are using labels. It's also about the applications actually being used in robots. So whether it's WebKit, this is the calculator actually, and Notepad, and these are the URLs that are being used. So in this case, just Amazon.com and the NOS, which is the Dutch news agency. More on that later. So why is this important? Why do we actually need this? Because this can then tell you, well, I'm going to roll out a new version of my ERP. Which robots are actually using that? Which ones are that? So here I can just double click and it's going to tell me exactly which robots are using that. I could go back and say, okay, which ones are actually going into the NOS website, or which ones are using the Amazon.com. There you go. And it's actually telling you the domain name and the actual URL they're doing there too. So this is extremely valuable. If you know that something is happening to an internal system, you can immediately do an impact analysis, and it's going to tell you which robots you need to pay extra attention to. The other great big feature here is that analytics is now aware of the kind of license that you have. As you know, we are currently going to market with CRE licenses, concurrent robot executions, but we still have a large number of customers that use KCUs, the compute unit licenses, and you had to switch and manually switch between them, even though you only could have one license set at a time. So both here in the utilization of the usage of the licenses, you can see that. So you can actually see what the average usage is, the peak usage, queue times if you have that, and also of course, and this is rather important nowadays, if you've had any robots that were queued, and that queue is of course available since 11.1, and it's of course also on the overview that you're not going to be bothered with things like, well, KCU usage. No, it's just going to show you CRE usage if you're using CRE, and vice versa if you are using KCUs. So this is of course extremely important if you want to think about, okay, when do I need to schedule my next robots? Do I run into CRE limitations? And of course, for us in sales, this is of course what we want to see from a customer, because we want to be able to identify when they might need to buy additional CRE licenses or KCU licenses. This is going to tell you exactly when that's going to happen. If you run this over a couple of weeks, you might see a trend that they are consuming more and more CREs, and that might be the right time for you to start having a conversation with them. So there you go. Isn't that nice? Last day, current day, last hour, whatever you want, you can show it and you can immediately start using that. And last and certainly not least, we also have robot execution usage numbers now there too. So this is of course going to help everyone going forward, and this just adds additional value to customers that are using our RPA solution. I've heard people say, well, I would never buy a car without a cockpit, and that's the same reason why I don't want an RPA user not having analytics installed. So make sure that you advocate this to your customers too. For those of them on a CRE license, analytics is most likely already included in their package, but otherwise it's a nice upsell if you have legacy customers with an older license set. So go and find that. And then let's start and think about what I just said about the documentation generation. You might want to sign that. And that's of course something that is brand new in RPA 11.2, and that's the integration with Kofax SignDoc. Most of you know that I'm a big fan of Kofax SignDoc, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open up a certificate of compliance. I'm going to have that signed, but I'm going to let the orchestration being done by RPA. So the first thing what we do is we load a file, and then we have another robot that does the actual calling of SignDoc. So let's step right in. So let me just close this off for now, reload this, makes life a bit easier. So the first thing that you then need to do is you need to open up the actual PDF. So here you have the certificate of compliance, where you can have several people signing this. In the interest of time, I'm just going to have one person sign this, and you then first start by preparing a session, and then I've said I want to have Laura sign here. Once that's done, we can complete the SignDoc request, and the actual invitation email will be sent out. So I'm just going to step over that. Here we go, and step out. So then I've got my mail hog running, which is going to catch that email, and once we receive that email, oh, there it already is, I can actually do a piece of signing. So what you saw me do just now was something that is of course a great utility to every SignDoc user out there that might want to do something like a batch or something that they want to automate SignDoc with. Let me just sign this real quickly. Laura, there we go. So the thing here is, of course, if I was using SignDoc today, and SignDoc Standard specifically, I would love to have RPA as a tool in my tool belt, because that's going to help me automating all of my SignDoc processes without the need of actual scripting and doing API integrations. Now I can just use it from RPA directly. So a great upsell opportunity here. Go after your SignDoc customers and sell them a couple of robots. And of course, for existing RPA users, they might now see how easy it is to work this with SignDoc without having to go through either the UI or through the API. And they can actually just do this. This is a great upsell opportunity for everyone. And then last and certainly not least, what I want to talk to you about, and you already saw the guy on Omit's slides, is I want to use this image, and I want to show you what the new cloud AI service integration can do as well. So I've got two examples here. First example is going to be about identifying that picture of Elon Musk and what we can do with that. So let's grab the basic robot for computer vision. And in this, for computer vision, I'm going to be using the Azure services. And later on for translation, I'm going to be using the Google ones. So what I've done here is I've actually done nothing more than stepping into this and just used the built-in cloud AI capability. Let me just give you some room here. And I've marked each and every of these capabilities. So you just say, I want to use Microsoft Azure. This is my personal endpoint that I've created in Azure. This is my key. And I want to do analyze an image. And the image I'm using is indeed that picture of Elon Musk we just saw. Let me just step over this and step out of this. Here we go. And what we now have is we've got a JSON response. What that is doesn't really matter, but that contains all of the information that we've just gotten back from Azure. So we can start to look at what kind of categories we found. Okay, it found that it was a person, that's fine. That it wasn't adult information on there either. And what we can also see is, well, on the details, that this was indeed a celebrity, and it already identified the person on that picture as being Elon Musk with a 99.999 confidence rate. So that is fantastic. What it can also do is it can find all other things that you might have on that picture there as well. And what I truly like, it actually gives a very descriptive caption. Elon Musk standing on a stage posing for the camera. So how can you use this? What's the business value for this? This is now something that I would potentially position within claims, for instance, where you sometimes need to upload photos of the reason why you're making an insurance claim. How great would it be that we can already use out-of-the-box capabilities to identify what we see there? And that will be great going forward for fraud detection and fraud prevention even. And you can think of so many applications of this as well. Well, one quick demo and then I'm going to give you back to Omid. So let's grab the other one. So cloud AI. So what I've got here is I've got a simple robot that does nothing else than to go to the Dutch national news agency, and it just grabs the first article that it comes across. Executing that. Here we go. Let me just make this a bit bigger. It's about COVID, of course. And if we then go in here, what I'm actually doing is I'm not using Azure now. I'm actually using Google, and I'm using the translate capability that it does. And I'm going to translate it to English. So I can step over this one, go out, go back. And here we have the actual text. This is a great translation, actually. It almost reads very natural as well. So this is, of course, something that is phenomenally powerful if you're using RPA in a multilingual environment or a multinational environment, where you might get responses into your organization from all across the globe, and you just want to have a draft translation ready to be used so that your business personnel can immediately see what's happening before they need to hand it off to someone who is a native speaker. So this is going to be a great piece of technology that you can use, and that's going to deliver a lot of value to our customers going forward. So one thing, and then I'm going to give you back to Omid. Let's run my Amazon robot. I'm running that in debug. So back in popular demand is I can still work on this robot while this is running in debug. So no more waiting before you're ready to debug. I can actually just keep on editing my robot and testing my robot here while this is still debugging. Isn't that great? I'm so happy that that's back in the products. So I'm going to give you back to Omid. Thanks everyone. Cheers.